When creating software, people often use external libraries to help them write code easier. This process is made simple by a lot of languages by something called a package manager, which can be used to install code from other places and integrate it with yours. You have pip for Python, npm for Node, cargo for Rust, etc. Unfortunately, there is no such package manager for Datapacks. Until today, I present to you DPM, the Datapack Package Manager. I've been working on it for quite some time now and it's finally ready for release. Let me show you what it can do. So to use DPM, you're first going to need to install it. So you want to go to the GitHub repository for DPM, which I will put a link to in the description of this video. And you want to go to releases and find the latest release, which at the time of recording is 0.1.0. And then you want to find assets and pick which version of DPM you want to install, depending on what platform you're on. I'm on Linux, so I'm going to download this one. And now that I've downloaded it, I can go and properties and mark this file as executable. And then if I open a terminal in here and I type /dpm and then tab, it will autocomplete the file name. And when I run this, it shows us that we have DPM correctly. Now, what I'd recommend doing is either exporting the path of this DPM file or putting it into an already exported path. And I'm not going to go into the details of that in this video, but I'll leave a link to some helpful resources in the description. So now that I have done that, I can just type dpm -- version and then it will print out DPM version 0.1.0 or whatever the version is that you just downloaded. So now that we've installed DPM, we can start actually using it. So the first feature of DPM is the install command. Let's say we've created a brand new world and we want to add some Datapacks to it. First, what you want to do is you need to find the world folder by going to edit and then open world folder, or you can find your .minecraft folder and then go to saves and then find the name of your world. And then after that, you need to find Datapacks. So in here is the list of all your Datapacks in your world, which should be empty. And now we need to open a terminal inside of this folder. So say what we're going to do is we're going to right click, and on most systems you can just right click and click open in terminal, or alternately, if you just open a terminal window, copy the path here, you can go type cd for change directory and then just paste that in. You can just do it like this, and if it's not behaving, then you can just put it in quotes and that should work as well. Now what we can do is we type dpm install, or you can just do dpm I for short, and then you just type in all of the slugs or IDs of the datapacks you want to install. So if we go to Modrinth and let's say find a datapack we want to install, say this one, you can see up here, this is the slug of the project. So it's this last bit of the URL. That is the slug. It's usually just the title, but all lowercase and dashes instead of spaces. If you want to, you can find the project ID and click copy. So let's say we want to install that, and for a demonstration let's also install Code of Copper, and as you can see it's all lowercase with dashes. If we start doing this, found project Tectonic and it's downloading the file, and then it found Code of Copper, so it's downloading that. It also downloads the resource pack if it has one, so you don't actually need this in your Datapack folder, but if you want to add this as a resource pack in Minecraft, you can just see that the resource pack is here and it's downloaded it for you, so you can get that if you want. And since Code of Copper has a bunch of dependencies, you can see it's installed all those, regex, moxlib, and all of this kind of stuff. Another thing you'll see is it downloaded Code of Copper 0.2.3. So this is the latest stable version of Code of Copper. If we look at the versions here, that's the one it downloaded because it's the latest release. There's also alphas and betas. Let's say we want to, instead of playing this 0.2.3, we instead want to play the very first version of Code of Copper. We can do dpm install Code of Copper, and then we do a little @ and we type in the version number, so that's 0.1.0. Install that, then you see it's downloading 0.1.0, it's downloading the old assets file, older versions of moxlib, and not regex because regex wasn't a dependency at that point, didn't even exist. So it's successfully downloaded an older version of Code of Copper. Or if you want to download the very latest and you don't know necessarily what it specifically is, but you just want to get the latest version, you can type @latest just like that, and that should download 0.3.0 beta 2. It's downloading all of the latest dependencies. In all of these cases, you should just be ready to go and play your world, and all the datapacks should load correctly. If you're in this correct datapacks folder, and you can see in your command prompt that it looks something like this, and this little datapacks thing should be on the end. So the other thing that install command can be used for is not only downloading datapacks into your world, but also getting dependencies and libraries for your own datapack. So I've just created a quick tutorial pack, which is just basically a blank datapack. And the first thing we need to do to be able to manage dependencies with DPM is we need to initialize a DPM project. So what you're going to want to do is, actually, we're currently in the Datapacks folder. So what you need to do is type cd and then the name of the thing. So I'm going to start typing tutorial, and then if you press tab, should auto complete it. And now we're in tutorial pack. And to check this is the right folder, you can type ls, or on Windows that is dir, dir, and that lists everything inside. So it should say data and pack.mcmeta. That means you're in the right folder. And then you want to type dpm init, and it's going to ask you some questions about this. So it's going to ask you the title. Let's just say tutorial pack, and then this project slug. This is exactly what I was saying earlier, and it just defaults to lowercase with dashes, which is probably what you want to keep because then it's easy for people to figure out the slug. So we'll just leave it like that. If you just press return, then it'll pick whatever's in brackets. The current version, so this is the default, but let's say maybe we're on version 0.4.9 already, because why not? And then game versions, let's say it's compatible with 1.20, 1.20.1, and 1.20.2. A quick summary of the datapack, say this is a summary. And then the project license, we're not going to go into that, so I'm just going to pick the default. And so that should have created two files. One is this blank DPM config, which we will look at later, and one is the project.json, which holds a bunch of data about your project, so you can see the name and the slug and all this which we just put in, and a couple of other things which you weren't able to change in that dialogue thing where it asks you, because I didn't want to put too many questions in. You can change the release type, so if we're releasing a beta version of the datapack, then we can say this is beta, and you can stick some categories on. For that you probably need to go and look at the Modrinth categories. They're all these ones. I'm not actually sure if you're supposed to put them in uppercase or lowercase or whatever, but I would suggest looking at the Modrinth documentation. I will leave a link to this in the description. This is the Modrinth API, which is exactly what DPM uses to do everything. So here's an example of the categories. It looks like they're all lowercase. So yeah, you just have to experiment a bit with those, but you can add some categories, or you can just add it to the datapack on Modrinth itself. And this dependencies is what we're going to look at next. If we're inside this same folder with the data and the DPM config and the project.json, we can type dpm install, get some libraries. So let's say we want moxlib, and let's say we want mcanim. And again, you can do different things. So you could do, maybe we want moxlib 0.5.0, and it's also downloaded moxlib experimental because that's an optional dependency. So I should probably remove that before I release it. I will do that. And if you see it's not downloaded anything in here, it's smart enough to know that files in here won't do anything, but if it goes up into the top one where all the datapacks are loaded, they are all here. And so if you were to go into your world and you had this code which uses those functions from these library datapacks, it should all work correctly. And the other thing is, if we look back at our project.json, it's added this dependencies, or it's added fields to the dependencies, and it says which version of which datapacks we have. First of all, it will put that on the Modrinth page, so it will say that this is required by moxlib and mcanim, or the other way around. And the other thing is, if you give someone your datapack files and you include this project.json and they need to get all the dependencies, what you can do is you can just do DPM install with nothing else, and it just automatically installs all of the moxlib or all of the library files which you need for your Datapack without you having to go through them and manually check and download them. So that is pretty much everything that the install command has to offer. Next, let's look at publishing a project. So to be able to publish projects to Modrinth, you're going to need an API token. And what this means is that obviously you don't want anyone to just be able to publish any Datapack to anyone's profile. So you need some way to tell Modrinth, tell DPM how to access your profile so you can publish stuff on it. And to do that, you'll need to create a personal access token. So if you go to your settings and then PATs for personal access tokens, you can see I have my main token, which I'm not going to be using for this. I'm going to create a new one because you won't have one. There'll be no tokens here. You'll need to click create. I'll just call this the tutorial token for now. You need to give it some permissions. For DPM to be able to work, you're going to need read user data so it can figure out which user has this token. You're going to need read projects, create versions, create projects, write versions, write projects, read versions, and I think that's all you're strictly going to need. In my main token, I just given it all permissions because it's just useful, because there may be some instance where you have a token that's trying to do something that the token doesn't allow. So if you at any point have an error saying something like invalid token or something about a token, then it's probably to do with this and you need to give it some permission. So I would just suggest doing all of them, but I'm just going to do it with these 5 for now. And for the expiry date, it doesn't really matter what I do right now. I am going to revoke this token before I publish the video, so you can't access my profile. For demonstration purposes, I'll get this. So you've got to copy it here, and you can see with my main token, there's no just like copy button. You got to store this somewhere. Put it on some secure file which people can't access easily. Keep it so you can actually use it. You can always just create a new one if you forget. It's just going to be like a long string of characters. We can just type DPM publish, and we need to give it authorization to use our account. You do auth and then paste the clipboard. So that is our authorization token. So now if we do this, it should create a project tutorial pack, and it created a version for us. So now if we go to our profile, you can see here's the tutorial pack. It's created it. It's not got a description. We have our summary here, we have our version, which is beta, because we said it was, has 2 dependencies, and also you can download this file. You can see it's created this zip file for us. All it currently has is data and pack.mcmeta. Now, we can also create a, let's call it readme. We can say hello world. If we publish again now, it's not really going to do anything because the current version already exists. So let's maybe just change this to 4.10. If we publish this again, we will see something. Let me actually show you a neat trick. So you don't have to copy and paste your access token every single time. You can type DPM alias, and let's call this tutorial, and then we will paste in our access token here. And so what this has done, it's created an alias. So now if we do publish, and instead of putting this long string, we can just do tutorial, and DPM now knows that this tutorial just means this long string. It's updated the project, we created the version. So now if we go back to our tutorial pack, first of all we have hello world in our description. What DPM does is it reads your readme file, which says hello world, and it just sticks that in the description. And you can see this tutorial pack 4.10 also contains the readme, because DPM by default includes the readme file. If we create some random file, and we can say hello in there, DPM is going to ignore this because it has a set list of files which it includes, which is basically data, pack mcmeta, and pack.png, and then readme and changelog. I'm pretty sure that's it, but you can change this. Let's say we don't want it to include the readme, but instead we want it to include foo.txt. If we open our DPM config file in our include files, we can go foo.txt, so that will only include files named foo.txt. We could also do star.txt, which means any text file in this folder it will include, or even foo.star, so anything beginning with foo. We can exclude files, so if we want to exclude readme.md, or maybe just all readme files, then now we will publish that again. If we look in the zip file that it has created for us, there is no readme and there is the foo.txt. It still uses the readme for this description even if you exclude it. There's currently no way to change that, but if we were to download this version, then it will give us this file with the foo file. Now, just one thing to note about aliasing. In order to store all your alias tokens, DPM creates a file on your system. So on Linux or Mac, if you're in your home folder, it will be in hidden folder called .local, so you may need to enable hidden folders for that, and then it will be inside share and then DPM, and you have this aliases.json. I'm not going to open this because this has my personal token, which I'm not going to show on video, but since there's no way to remove an alias, if you go into here, you can remove aliases that you've created that you don't want anymore, or that were an accident or something like that. On Windows, if you just type in %appdata%, that will basically take you to a folder, and that will have DPM inside of it, and it will be the same folder with the aliases JSON. Okay, so I've covered most of it so far. There is just one more simple thing that DPM can do, which you might find helpful. If you are starting a new data pack and you don't want to have to go through, the process of going in and creating your data and your pack.mc meta and all the files required to create a simple data pack, there is actually a feature to help you. If we go back into our Datapacks folder and we can type DPM create, this will take a template. So let's actually use this help flag. There's a list of templates here. There's only 2 at the moment. There's basic and simple. We'll just look at the basic one for now. So if we type DPM create and then basic, call it test pack, and we need to put that in quotes because there's a space, and then it does the same series of questions as when you initialize a project, but now when we open, it created a test pack folder for us, and it's created this project.json. It's also created a pack.mc meta and data, which has the functions, and it also has your tick and load.json, which should be linked correctly. That's all the features of DPM so far. I hope it will help you in your data pack creation journeys. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments or create an issue on GitHub. Please report any bugs found on GitHub as well. That's all from me. Goodbye.